Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of Social Light, the podcast for entrepreneurs. And we have a very special guest with us today. We have Mr. Jeff Clanton, who is a web developer and an internet marketer. And he's here to share with us an incredible story of how he got started in the industry. Jeff, thank you for joining us. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much. So let's just go ahead and jump in because I know we've been chatting a little bit and you really have a lot of great insight into your industry. My first question is, what made you decide to get into your field of industry and tell us a little bit about your background?
Well, it was actually a combination of things. It started out, I was just working regular jobs, just 9 to 5, things like that. And I came down with a lot of illnesses. And one that really gave me issues was neuropathy, which is basically having nerve pain. And that limited what I could do physically. And I was out of work for a couple of years because of it. And I was just kind of at a crossroads of where, what can I do and where do I go? And fortunately, my brother is into programming a lot and does a lot of work with computers. And he had mentioned that maybe I might want to try it because it's not as physical. It's, you sit down at a computer, maybe it's something I'd be able to do. So I took a couple of training courses on it to, try to see if it was just something I could do, because I had never really dabbled with anything like this. And I got done with the training courses and it was just something that I thought was really interesting. It was a lot of fun to do once I actually got started and realized like I'm able to style pages and move things around. And, it's something that I guess when you start, you don't really think is something you can do. And then when you make something happen, you're like, oh, aha, it's like excites you,
Absolutely. Yeah. I want to touch on what you said. You said that it was due to illness that you were kind of taken out of the workforce and you just kind of had to reinvent yourself and recreate yourself. So you turned online for training classes. How was your experience with that? Because I think one of the major setbacks that people have when they're starting or thinking about getting into like entrepreneurship, the U economy, the opportunity that the internet provides. I think one of the major fears is their fear that they lack the skills to be successful at something. So if you could just share with us what your experience was with actually taking online classes and getting involved in those.
It's actually online. There's a lot of resources that you can find, and a lot of them are actually free. You can go to different websites and get basic courses in certain languages and things like that. But they also have like more advanced where, it'll get, as you go, it gets increasingly difficult and involves projects and stuff. And so there's stuff like that you can pay for. But if you go to, if you search around, you can find websites that offer free training. You can find groups online that discuss issues and stuff like that. But what I've learned is being a web developer is as far as feeling like you don't know enough, like, it just seems like it's par for the course. You always feel like, I just don't feel like I have a grasp on this,
Yeah, I think, entrepreneurs, and I know we touched on this earlier, it's that spirit, that spirit to want to create and really make a difference. And you just know that you have a passion and you know that you want to accomplish a goal, and you just find any way necessary to develop the skills to do that.
Right. I mean, I think that's part of it is that every time you do a new project, it's always different in some way. It's not just like an assembly line, you do the same thing over and over again. So you get done with something and you feel real comfortable, and then you get a different job and you look at what's involved with it, and it may, involve things that you haven't touched on in a while or have never touched,
Yeah. Yeah.
Each project is unique.
Let me ask you this, for people that have thought about getting into web development and creating their own business, how long did it take you from like conception, like the idea that this was something that you wanted to explore, to the time that you actually started landing clients and this became profitable for you?
It probably took me a good 2 years to really get, my first client. But a lot of that had to do with thorough training. Well, a couple of things. One, I did a lot of training to begin with. And once I got done with the training, it had a lot to do with actually writing code, different languages like those who are familiar with it, HTML, CSS, things like that. And I got done with that. And my initial, what I wanted to do was just get into the workforce doing this. So I went out, I tried to apply for a job. And of course, the first job that I applied for, they did zero coding. They use what you call WordPress, which is more like drag and drop. There's no coding involved. It's a lot easier for people that don't know how to code to build a website. But I had never touched anything like this. And of course, he was hesitant to bring me on, not having any experience. So I was turned down for the job. So I went home, and then I kind of was training too, where I started training on WordPress and, getting more familiar with that. So once I kind of felt like I had a grasp on those things, then I started going out and actually trying to look for people that, I could try to build something for.
I mean, that's a great story, and I think you bring up a great point where it's where you knew that you lacked the skills, but you went back with that determination to like not give up. At that point, I think some people would give up at that point and throw their hands up in frustration and be like, oh, well, I just wasted, all this time doing this. I'm no good. I'm just going to go, back to the 9 to 5 grind. But I think you really pressed on something that, you always have to learn. We're always learning. One of the things about being an entrepreneur and a business owner is that you really have to be the spearhead of innovation for your company, your brand. And you really got to we always have to acquire the skills to keep us ahead.
Right. That's one of the big things about web development is there's so many different languages. There's so many different ways to build websites that you're constantly learning. You'll never know everything that's involved with it. So when you get into a project or you're looking online and they're saying that I require this and I require that, it's just one of those things that it takes time to start gathering all this experience. It's like when you're first starting out, it's just, I know certain things, I can use those, to offer people, a way to make money online, but it's always a learning experience. You're never at the finish line. You're always moving, you're always in the race.
Man, that's great advice. Thank you. And that kind of rolls into the next question I have for you is, what advice would you give to someone who's just starting out? Like, let's say someone that wants to become a web developer but really doesn't know how to start. Do you have any tips or like expert insider information you'd like to share with someone just starting out?
I think what I would say is that especially when you're first starting out and you're meeting with clients, just be 100% real about what you're able to do. Don't go into a situation and try to portray something that you're not, or say that you have skills that you don't really have. One of the bad things is to go into something, tell a client that you're capable of doing something, but in the back of your mind, you're thinking, when I get home, I'm just going to try to do as much research as I can. I mean, that just leads like missed deadlines and, poor quality work. And it's just a bad route to go. If you're trying to do something for somebody that's a little bit outside your wheelhouse, there's nothing wrong with trying to grow your skills. but just be honest with them and tell them that, you know, I'm not familiar with this, but I would like the chance to, you know, I'd like the opportunity to take on the challenge. You know, would you be willing to hire me for it? So that way, if they decide to hire you, then at least you're going into it honestly, and they're not expecting more from you than you're able to give.
That is great advice, and it's funny because earlier in the week I actually shared a little blip of video, and it was basically telling people, you know, uh, under promise and over deliver. That's the key to success. And when you do under promise and over deliver, you always end up becoming a hero. But if you make the mistake of, you know, over promising and under delivering, I mean, that can really have detrimental effects to your business and to your reputation, especially as a startup. I mean, would you agree? I mean, that could potentially ruin you before you even get started.
I definitely agree. I mean, especially when you're first starting out, I mean, you're trying to create a buzz on the street. You're trying, when you get your first clients, you want them to say good things about you and recommend you to people.
Mm.
I mean, if you're going out and missing deadlines or giving you know, work that's not up to par, then that buzz it's a bad buzz, and that could make or break you. You want your first work to be, say I'm going to do this, you do that, and your client is happy that, you know, you delivered what you said you were going to deliver.
Man, that's great. And that kind of rolls into the next question. We kind of got like the, you know, we're kind of rolling right along, and that is, what one thing do you know now as a successful web developer who has built a business and from scratch? I mean, from zero. What one thing do you know now that you wish you knew back then when you were first starting out?
I would say one big mistake that I made was when I met with clients, I tried real hard to show them that I was a web developer by using all the computer jargon that I could possibly give them. You know, I would try to talk about the languages that I knew. You know, I can compress images, I can, you know, and they're just looking at you like you're speaking a different language, you know?
Yeah.
You know, they don't know the details that you're giving them. So by using that to try to show that you know what you're talking about, it's not doing any good because they don't even know what it is. So the best thing to do is when you meet with a client, don't try to, you know, like boast on what kind of things you do in your business, or rather like what you do, how it can make them money. Like not what tools I have in my tool belt, but what I'm going to do with those tools to bring you money in the door. That's a better approach.
And that's, I mean, that sounds almost too simple. You know, I think from listening to you say that, I agree. Even when I was first starting out, I think I started gaining a lot of traction when I just started speaking basic English to people. You know, like, hey, what do you do? Well, I can help you grow your social media audience, which in turn generates more revenue for your company. I mean, that's a lot better than, oh, SEO, keywords, backlinks. Yeah, I mean, yeah, you're right. I agree with you 100%. That's great advice. Thank you.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I built a sign when I first started. It said, you know, Jeff Clanton, web developer, and, you know, I do this and that. The simple thing is just, I'm Jeff. I build websites. I do marketing. That's language that people understand, you know? They don't want to know I can build HTML sites or JavaScript or what's JavaScript, you know?
Yeah. That's great advice. Just keep it simple, right? I think we lose sight of that as we get older. It's, you know, back to the basics almost.
Right.
Jeff, this has been fantastic advice. And where can, for people that are audience and that want to reach out to you, where can we find you on the interwebs? Where do you live?
Right now, I have a website up at jeffclanton.com that has all my packages and a couple of portfolios that I've done so far. And I'm also on Twitter at twitter.com/Clanton Jeffery. And if you have a business or you're on LinkedIn, you can find me at linkedin.com/in/Jeff Clanton.
Jeff, thank you again. Thank you for taking some time again. This is our second go around. We had technical difficulties the first time, so thank you for clearing your schedule so that we could actually get this on film. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate the opportunity. I had a really good time.
Yeah, this has been great, and I think you really hit on a lot of things. Thank you for sharing your journey with us, because it was really great to have someone on that actually, you kind of started the way I started, which was in a rough time, and looking for something to make your life better and to really just start feeding your own creativity and the empowerment. I think the journey of empowerment, where you realize, hey, I can, I command my own destiny. I can do this myself, and I can work for myself and really create something. I just gotta put in the time. Your story is great because it shows that you can start from zero, put in the time, and you can come out the other end super successful. And I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you again. I appreciate you having me on. I appreciate the opportunity.
All right, Jeff. Well, we will talk soon. And once again, thank you so much. You have a great rest of your day.
Yeah, you too. Thanks.
All righty. Thank you.
Bye.